I don't normally do rankings. I really couldn't care less about rankings. I do the power rating stuff. But that's for in the season, I guess. Trey hit us from Little Rock. He said, I'm seeing a lot of analysts putting out post-spring rankings. What say you? Or are you going to hide behind the JP poll? I don't even see a poll in here, Immunity. I don't see the JP poll anywhere. I can't hide behind something that doesn't exist. Trey, the JP poll is for much closer to the season. So you say a lot of people are putting out rankings. So since Trey said it, I went and looked. And it does turn out, Jesse and Colin, that a lot of people in our space are putting out rankings. Now, we like to pride ourselves as being leaders more so than followers. Most of the time, I have no clue what's even happening outside of these walls. But in the interest of keeping with the times, per se, I'm not going to do it fashion-wise, but in keeping with the times content-wise, why not? Why not try this out? And if it goes poorly, oh well. It's the middle of May. Only our diehard P1 crowd is here this time of year anyway. So I'm going to give it to you right now. I'm going to go top 20 if that's okay. And I'm going to try and snap through these pretty quickly or else this could turn into a 45-minute segment. My number one team in the country coming out of spring, the Clemson Tigers. Quarterback returns. OC returns. DC returns. Dabo's back, so the head coach returns as well. I just feel like they've built towards 2025. I felt like last year you could feel that momentum sort of later in the year, South Carolina game notwithstanding. But the thing that I pay attention to with them, best wide receiver room I've seen them have in several years, and they've got NFL talent on every level of the defense. I'm really high on Clemson this year. And the reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm putting them number one is because I do not want to hear anyone in that program talk about how no one saw them coming and everyone doubted them. If they go on to do something of significance this year, I want to stand next to Dabo Swinney and I want to say, we were underdogs. He and I were underdogs because outside of me, no one else believed in him. I'm pretty sure a lot of other people are going to believe in him too. Second team, or I guess we would call that number two. The number two team, Texas. Really, really high on Texas. I was just out there last week. It's Steve Sarkisian's first wave. Like when you think of a coach taking over a program, you want him to win immediately, yes, and then especially year 2, year 3, but it's really when you get that fourth and beyond year, you start to have your waves hitting the beach, hitting the shore. The waves of guys that you recruited and they've known only your program. They didn't play for some other coach and you. And so they've been just raised in an environment that you cultivated, and that is Steve Sarkisian this year. And so while they're replacing a lot of talent, they portaled very well. They are lethal in talent acquisition there. I believe in Arch Manning. A lot of stuff's going to be said about him. I just believe he'll play at a high enough level. It's almost a boring headline. I believe he'll play at a high enough level for them to win, and I trust him. I implicitly trust them, and so I'm going to put him as high as number 2. I think they could win the national title this year. Number 3 team, who I'm told some people have number 1. I'm not mad at it. I got Penn State number 3 right now. They've just got all the usual elements of themselves. Penn State's the most mischaracterized program in the country. They have been for a while. Here's the reality. They have floated in the 4 to 10 range in terms of average quality of team any given year. Last year, probably a little bit higher than normal, but that's where they've been. What have they lacked? Well, they've lacked difference makers at wide receiver to get them over the hump in a few big games. And it seems to me they've taken as good a steps as they've taken in several years under James Franklin to address that. They did it via the portal, but if they've got that, I don't doubt them defensively. They just brought Jim Knowles in for good measure. I don't doubt their running game. I don't doubt them on the O-line. They've got a third-year starter at quarterback now, so there's a lot that I know I can depend on. The floor's pretty high with them. But if I'm going to put them up at number 3, you notice that's ahead of Ohio State. That's ahead of Oregon. Well, that means I think that they can win the Big Ten, which means I think they can get over the proverbial hump that they haven't gotten over. And you would be correct, because I do believe that about them. Another team that I believe in strongly this year, I believe in Alabama. Got them all the way up at number 4. I think the personnel is just pretty dramatically upgraded from last year. Specifically, could have one of, if not the best wide receiver rooms in that conference, could have one of, if not the best defensive back rooms in that conference. But above and beyond that, I was sort of disappointed with them and Georgia both in how poorly they ran the ball relative to the standards of those teams and those programs usually. And I think with Ryan Grubb coming in as their offensive coordinator, more so than scheme change or, play design improvement or anything like that. I just think the collective attitude and identity of the offense will be much easier to figure out. They seem kind of schizophrenic week to week last year. Hey, quick timeout. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, make sure you do. It's free. It doesn't obligate you or sign you up for anything. It just helps us keep the channel free. All right, back to the show. And that doesn't fall on one person. Popular though it may be to suggest that, it doesn't just fall on one person, coach or player. So I'm really high on Alabama, and I think the returning production and the guys that could have gone to the portal or could have gone to the NFL and have come back, it's kind of a version of what Ohio State had happen last year. Everybody talked about it at the finish line for Ohio State, but really we were talking about it in summer when we went up there because that's what Ryan Day kept talking about. The outside world was all about the portal additions, and he said, look at the guys who just returned for us that have been here 3 or 4 years. If we win, that'll be the reason we win. They won. That was the reason they won. Number 5 team, LSU, got him in the top 5. Really high on LSU as well. It's Garrett Nussmeier in an ocean of uncertainty at the quarterback position in his conference. I've got certainty that LSU can win with their guy. I've got certainty he is surrounded by proper skill set. They just signed the number 1 portal class in the country, and Blake Baker defensively year 2 with coordinator, plus the players that he has, and again through the portal that they didn't necessarily have last year, should be able to put together a quantumly improved overall unit on the field. Not to mention, I just think he's one of the best in the country at his job. There is a layer of unknown because of how dependent they were on the portal. I believe they effectively address their needs, above and beyond, address their needs to the point where I think they can really, really compete for playoff spot and beyond this year. Number 6, this is where I've got Notre Dame right now. Love the nucleus, love the identity of the program. So the quarterback position is going to get all the attention. Riley Leonard leaves, and typically in this sport, when you've got a departing quarterback and the guy who's going to take over for him, in this case C.J. Carr, hasn't really started, it's a big question mark. And yes, it is for Notre Dame as well. Here's the thing you need to remember, though. Sometimes questions get answered in the affirmative, so he could be really good. And also, as much as that may be a question mark, the ceiling is higher this year on the quarterback position than it has been the last couple of years there. So for everyone who wants to label it a question mark and it could be a bust, well, okay, but it could be a question mark and he ends up playing better than anyone Marcus Freeman's had there so far. I know he's going to have the ground game. I know that I trust them at Notre Dame to be able to backfill, even losing a coordinator and losing some talent defensively. So the ceiling, or the floor is pretty high for that team as well, and I think the ceiling still is. I've gotten to Oregon here. I've got Oregon at number 7, post-spring. There is a lot of unknown still here, but like I just said with the Notre Dame quarterback situation, you can apply that across the board for Oregon. Yeah, they just brought in some portal pieces on the offensive line, but they're really, really high ceiling types. Dante Moore hasn't been their guy at quarterback yet, but yet they signed a really highly rated kid out of high school this last cycle, and that kid watched Dante Moore in practice a couple of days and said, yeah, I'm out of here. So Dante Moore, extremely high ceiling as well. But if you just look at the overall totality of the roster there, the reason, even with question marks, you can't go much lower than this for Oregon is because the roster is just littered with blue chip talent, because that's what they've done up there. Recruiting, high school, portal. There are very few places where you look and say, there's a question mark on Oregon's roster or Oregon's depth chart, and there are no former 4- and 5-star kids in that position room. Doesn't mean they'll all pan out. But knowing that program developmentally, it's likely a bunch of them will. So I've got them there. Running back 1, excellent. Wide receiver 1, excellent. Ohio State, I'd put right behind them at number 8. Tons of questions here, but the raw talent and makeup of the personnel is such that even if there's a question mark at virtually every position, you can't go much lower than this. And this is kind of post-spring. You know, when you get into fall camp and you start getting more definitive reports on these guys, it's likely that even in a rankings format, you kind of start to elevate Ohio State. They may not, look, there's no maybe. They won't be a finished product or anywhere close to that in week 1. the team you see in week 1 against Texas will be a far cry from the team you see against Michigan at the end of the season. But you lose a quarterback, you lose OC and DC, and you lose so much talent to the NFL. It's very natural that you got questions. It doesn't matter how highly you recruit. Everyone's got questions like that. So I put Ohio State at number 8. Now, this is where we're going to get accused of trying to be sensationalists. I'm really not. It's just you need to understand, before Colin even shows you who this is, you need to understand how my mind works on this stuff. Even though I'm not power rating, even though we're ranking, I do not rank you merely on where you left off last year. I think about what I expect you to be this year at the start of the season, and that's where I rank you. So just psychologically think through this. Let's say you're a high-achieving program, but last year's team wasn't that great record-wise. You have the least incentive imaginable to keep doing what you were doing, right? Now, that doesn't mean the changes you make will work, but it does mean inevitably there will be a lot of changes. So some of the last logic that I buy into when it comes to highly regarded programs that put bad teams on the field the previous year is, oh, it'll just be more of the same. No, man, they turn over every rock. They adjust every knob and every lever. They leave no stone unturned. So I got 2 of them in a row. It actually just sort of happened this way. I got 2 of them in a row here that had poor records last year that I think will be top 10 caliber teams this year. Florida is one of them. I got Florida at number 9 because I said the other day, some of you thought I misspoke. I didn't. I think that they're one of the few teams in the country that has the potential, personnel-wise, to be a top 10, top 15 caliber on either side of the ball sort of team. Not a guarantee. It's just that there's a handful any given year that you say, hey, if everything pans out for them, that team could be top 10, top 15, both sides of the ball. Florida actually can be that. It's May, so it remains to be seen if they will. But if we're ranking on potential here, if I've got a healthy quarterback down there, Lagway could be one of the best in the country. I felt like generally the program's been trending towards this being a year that it needs to really pop. Defense is young, but I think that's a really, really high upside sort of side of the ball. And I trust him to be able to run the ball. Therefore, I trust him to be able to control games this year. I'm just really high on Florida. And another one probably I think is the most overlooked of the major conference teams heading into the summer is Oklahoma. Apparently I'm higher on Oklahoma than anybody is. I think it could be a top 10 team coming into the season. Not one of those wait and see sort of things, because I believe in the quarterback OC addition that much. I believe in Mateer and Arbuckle and their addition to that team that much that I look around last year. Guys, if they were on that team last year, I would think they would have competed and contended. So I think I'm going to have another top 15, let's just call it a top 20 to be conservative, caliber defense. Man, if that offensive line is in decent shape, it's going to be a really tough team to beat. Now, several teams will have their shot because they play, I think, the toughest schedule in the country, but this isn't about that. This is just about the caliber team I think you'll field to start the season. So the top 10 there is Clemson, Texas, Penn State, Bama, LSU, Notre Dame, Oregon, Ohio State, Florida, Oklahoma. I would say, Jesse, again, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to what others have put out there. I would say Oklahoma's probably going to raise some eyebrows. I think Florida will raise some eyebrows because Georgia's not in there. So I think them being above Georgia, them being above, we'll see. I don't want to spoil it because we are going to go 10 through 20 here or 11 through 20. But I think those will raise some eyebrows. LSU's high for most people. I think Bama's a little higher. I doubt a lot of people have Clemson number 1. But that's okay. It's rankings. I would ask you guys, just quickly, if I were to have put out the actual order of finish last year as my preseason rankings in May, do you know how stupid it would have looked? In fact, any given year, look at the way the season pans out. If anyone would have put that order of teams any given year in December out on your screen in May, how crazy would it have looked? So inevitably, things aren't going to go pure chalk all year long. So that's why I don't think anything's crazy this time of year. Well, I don't think anything I'm putting out is crazy. It's a fair statement. Let's continue to move on. Okay, here we go. Number 11 through 20. I got Georgia at number 11. Georgia's got to be able to run the ball, at least much better than they did last year. Now, like I said with other teams, any proud program that struggled to do something they typically are able to do spends the entire winter and spring and summer figuring out how to do that thing. So that is one of the main things they've been focused on there. I don't doubt that. I know that. I know those folks. I've been around them this spring. I know that. Will they be able to, while also starting a new quarterback and trying to reestablish their identity defensively? There's a lot of baked in benefit of the doubt that G logo buys you, and that works with me as well. And if you get in fall camp and you start to hear good things about them, much like Ohio State, that's another team that I'll probably bump up the ladder a couple of rungs. But, they went and got Josh McCray, a running back from Illinois. He's not there yet. I think he's finishing up class. If they are what they should be run game-wise again, he'll be a big reason why. I'll tell you another one, Juan Gaston, who I don't even know is listed as a starting offensive lineman there. That's the kind of guy, though. I know you heard some good things about him in spring. If they are to maximize their potential running the ball, that's the kind of guy that probably listed with 2s or 3s right now needs to emerge for Georgia and body-wise needs to get himself in the proper shape. But if he's there, those are the kind of names you'll start to hear in fall camp if Georgia is to be what they're supposed to be running the ball. If they are, Georgia's once again a national title contender. But we're talking about post-spring right now. So there's still a lot of question about that. I would put Miami at 12. Miami took huge steps to fix what was an egregious issue for them last year defensively. So they cleaned out a lot of the staff. They brought in Heatherman from Minnesota. And I'm interested to see, kind of like Blake Baker at LSU last year, how much year one improvement will he have? If they're above average defensively, Carson Beck will be good enough to win games for you. Their skill set, their ground game, recruiting those offensive linemen for 3-4 years now. That's how long Mario's been there. I mean, that's what you should expect from them. They've got a ton of moves they've made. I think they got the number 3 portal class in the country right now. So I guarantee you they probably look at what were holes post-spring and think we filled those pretty admirably. The reason I put them down at 12 is because, well, if you did, okay, but that's a lot of portal movement. That's a lot of dependence on portal guys. So I don't know. And you're coming out of spring, and a lot of guys you just added, you didn't even go through spring with. So 12, I think, is fair from Miami because the skill's going to be down there to win every game you play. But it was last year, and they sucked defensively, just horribly. So that's a 10-win team that I still think underachieved because of how poor the defense was. How big's the defensive improvement year one? I got Arizona State pretty high, man. I got Arizona State at number 13. That's the number 2 team in the country in returning production. And every bit as important as that is, think about this. There's no staff turnover there. That's a team that won the Big 12 last year and was one of the big stories of college football in 2024. And you've got the Big 10 and the SEC looking at it. And you know good and well they want to poach as much as they can. And you know good and well they look at Arizona State saying it's just a Big 12 team. So we would be able to poach as much as we can. Well, they tried and they failed. And I think one day the full story may be told about how Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State was able to keep that staff together. Not my story to tell, but it's a good story. And it may go a long way in deciding that conference championship race this year. I'm going to talk about them a little bit later in the show, but that's a team that has potential above and beyond just competing in their conference. They're very talented, and they are very together as a program/team. It's going to be a really hard out this year again. Texas A&M, I would put at number 14. Could have the best rushing attack in the country. They got 3 tailbacks I think would start most places, maybe outside of like Penn State, places like that. But running back, offensive line, trust it. Marcel Reed, need him to take the next step as a passer. But I'll tell you the thing that I'm most excited to watch is Mike Elko just sort of trashed their defensive performance later in the season. And you give that guy an entire spring and summer's worth of focus on his specialty, which is defense. They'll never look like that defensively again as long as he's around there. I've got a lot of confidence in that. So I'm pretty high on A&M. I'd put them at number 14. I'd put Illinois at number 15. Illinois is a team that personnel-wise is not going to go man for man with Ohio State, even if all of Ohio State's starters are new. They're not going to go man for man with Oregon, even if Oregon's got a lot to replace. Outside of that, though, right now, because of their returning production level, which is number 3 in the country, and because of how much you can trust that team, I think 15 may be low, honestly. We may still need to bump Illinois a little higher than that. But outside of the teams above them, who are just there because they recruit at such an extremely higher level than Illinois, that's where I'm putting Illinois. That's a top 15 team to enter the season, and they've got a chance. They got Ohio State at home. They got USC at home. They got a chance to do some big things this year. I would say, I'm going to read 11 through 15 there, Georgia, Miami, Arizona State, Texas A&M, Illinois for the podcast crowd. So that's 11 through 15. The most egregious there, Georgia, we're going to be lower on Georgia to start the season. I know that. Arizona State, maybe we're a little higher on them. Illinois, probably about right. I don't know where in the world people have A&M. We continue, 16 through 20. I felt like this was a good, responsible place for Ole Miss. Very curious. I've got Ole Miss at number 16 exiting spring. Now, we could be very low on them or we could be a tick high on them. Austin Simmons at quarterback, they've got full confidence in. Side note, he also already graduated, for whatever that's worth to you. But they got 29 more transfers coming in there, which is not a bad thing. It's just a mystery. It's not a bad thing. They wouldn't have taken them if it was a bad thing. But since they're disproportionately building through the portal instead of building through high school, there's going to be a lot of intrigue and mystery around this team every year, which means if I'm tasked with ranking them, I'm going to rank them around here every year. And those defensive losses, I don't just blindly or even with somewhat limited vision depend on just backfilling and moving on as usual. I don't just count on that. If you get it, great. But there's a lot of guesswork right now with Ole Miss, and I'd put him at 16 because of that. I got one we're really high on here. I'm way higher on Georgia Tech than I think most of the country is. I'm going to have them top 20 right now. Number 17, as a matter of fact, to enter the season. Haynes King is a high-level competitor. He's back at quarterback, but I also respect the competitive character of that team. I've watched it the first couple of years under Brent Key. I watched him last year. I guarantee you if I did nothing more than change the outcome of the Georgia game, which was like 19 overtimes, so it was coin flip after coin flip, could have gone either way. If I changed that outcome, I guarantee you everyone would have Georgia Tech top 20 this year. But because they lost, and you are what your record says you are, a loss is a loss, blah, 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 no one really understands how good that team is, how good they could be. Like, I think they could win the ACC. So that's how high I am on them. They get Clemson at home pretty early. They get Georgia at home late. This is not about schedule projection. I really do think the caliber of team could be that good. Running game's going to be really good, but just look at how they play. If you know anything about Brent Key, watch Georgia Tech play, and it's no mystery to you. Oh, it makes perfect sense. That's a Brent Key team. That's exactly what they should look like. I've got South Carolina at 18. Lenore Sellers can be a Heisman Trophy winner. So they can be that good at quarterback. The running back room's kind of up in the air because of eligibility. We're still trying to figure that out. The wide receiver room, okay, they didn't majorly upgrade it through the portal. So is it going to be good enough? Can you backfill the departing players you just lost to the NFL draft? Because South Carolina did really good in the draft. I'm going to probably be a touch lower on them at this point in the season, because it hasn't started, than I think most, but I've got South Carolina 18. I'd put Michigan at 19 right now. The quarterback picture, obviously, first and foremost, is still hazy. If it's Underwood, how good is he immediately? They go to Oklahoma week 2, so if it's him, we'll find out. Always love young quarterbacks having to face Brent Venables on the road. That's always a fun recipe. The roster's plenty strong enough. So if their quarterback play is B- or better, 19's too low. We just don't know what it's going to be yet. And I put Texas Tech at number 20. That's a roll of the dice. This is totally on potential. Vast majority of their starting 22, and really they're too deep, will be from the portal. It's a different approach. It's an aggressive approach. anything could happen in any year in the Big 12. So that especially goes for a team that hit the portal as hard as Texas Tech did. So there you go. That's my post-spring top 20. That's how it feels, apparently, to rank teams. That's not the JP poll. If I had the JP poll and it saw me put Georgia at 11, the JP poll would fire me. In no world is Georgia outside the top 10. And I just picked them out of the group. But, yeah, there are going to be several discrepancies with what I just gave to you and what the JP poll says when it finally shows up and it's ready to be featured on the show.